Hello guys, and welcome back to another video of the Python tutorial series. In the previous video, we studied data types in Python, and in today's video we are going to be looking at variables in Python. We'll look at what a variable is, how to create variables in Python, and then how to actually use variables. Then finally, before we conclude, we'll look at why it is necessary or the good aspects of using a variable. This is a file that we used in the previous episode, but in today's video we are going to create a new file that we'll use to talk about variables. To do that, I'm going to bring back my sidebar by going to the left side of the editor, and I'm going to click on this little arrow over here. Then on the folder, our project folder, which we name scripts, I'm going to right click on it and go to new file, just like we did last time, and I'm going to name this one 02 underscore variables.py. Now immediately you create a file for me, and I'm going to collapse the sidebar again so that we have space. I'm going to put a small comment over here, variables. Now, before we actually start talking about variables, I'm going to write out a question that we would answer after we finish learning everything, so that we'll have some set of sense into how we should be using variables and why we should be using it. So I'm going to write a question now. So here's the question. Assuming you are working with people's data in Python, create variables to store a person's full name, his or her age, and indicate whether the gender is female or not. Now, this is the question that we'll be tackling at the end of this particular video. But before that, let's now talk about variables. So, what is a variable? You might have heard the word in your math class, maybe algebra class, for example. And usually, the most common type of variables that we use are X and Y. Now, I like to think of a variable as a container with a label on it. That label is the variable name. And this container is supposed to contain a certain value or something of interest, to us. And in general programming, we could say that this value would be some kind of data that you would be working with, either a string, boolean, float, or anything that we just talked about in the previous video. So a variable is essentially a box with a label that contains a certain value of interest to us. So how do you create a variable in Python? That's the question. How do you create a variable in Python? To create a variable in Python, you need a variable name and its value. Now, this is what you do. You write a variable name, so name, or should I say variable name, like that, and this would be equal to a certain value. So let's say the value is having the string value, something like this. Now we'll explain. See, you have an equal to. This equal to is what you call the assignment operator. So what it's doing is that it's assigning the value, this string value, to this variable name. And when you are naming a variable in Python, it is conventional that you use lowercase words and you use only a single word. No spaces are allowed. So usually what they use to separate variable names that are of more than one word is an underscore, like what I've done over here, variable underscore name. And then they don't use any capitalization. It's just something that's general that everyone goes according to. It's not like if you use capital letter it would make any difference, but this is how we do it, and it's nicer like this. It makes the code more readable. You should also know that when naming variables, you are only allowed to use letters of the alphabet, the underscore, and numbers, but the underscore is not allowed to start the variable name. You can do it, but it is not allowed basically, so it doesn't really make any difference. But just to stick to conventions, you have to write something like this, variable name, something like this. For example, if I'm supposed to store the amount I used today in a variable, I can be like amount underscore used is equal to maybe 200 Ghana cedis. So I'll just write 200. I wouldn't write like the Ghana cedis attached to it. So I'm interested in the value, which is 200. The Ghana cedis is just a symbol, or should I say certain quantization of the currency. So it's not needed. It's only the 200 that's needed. You just need to agree that, oh, this is in cedis. So this is how easy it is to create a variable in Python. All you need is a variable name, the assignment operator, which is the equal to, and a value that you want to store in that variable. Could also have a variable storing the boolean, so I could be like true or false, and I'll equate this to maybe true. So this is also another variable that I've just created. The value is true, this is the assignment operator, and then this is the variable name. Now, how do you use a variable? I've created 3 variables over here. You can use it anytime you want to refer to the value. So anytime I want to refer to the value of the amount used, all I need to do is to reference this variable name, and then I'll be referred to that particular value. So for example, if I go ahead and print out amount used, if I go ahead and print this out in the terminal, so I'm going to save this file, go to my CMD, clear the screen. It's already cleared anyway, but I'm going to run the file, and we have named the file 02 underscore variables.py. So Python 02 underscore variables.py. Don't forget, if you want to run a Python file in your terminal, you write the word Python, you specify the version if you're on a Mac or a Linux. Write the word Python, then you write the name of the file that you want to run over here. So Python 02 underscore variables.py. If I hit the enter key, you realize that it prints out 200. It doesn't print out amount used, it prints out 200. Remember, variables are containers with labels, and the labels are the names. So it's basically like me referring to the container with the label amount used. So what is inside that container? 200. So 200 will be printed on the page. 200 will be printed in my terminal for me. That's how variables work. Now, why do you need to use variables? Why do you need to use variables? Usually when you are writing computer programs, you need to use certain values, not just in one place. For example, this amount used, I can use it maybe 100 times in my code. Now, if I'm using this amount used 100 times in my code, imagine I'm just inputting the number 200. Well, that would be normal. If I'm writing a normal code the first time, I'll write 200 every time I want to use the amount used. But what happens if I want to change this value to maybe 300 or let's say 400? What happens then? You realize that I would have to go through my whole code to change this value 400. Like everywhere I see 200, I will change it to 200. And that could be a lot of work because some programs would contain like thousands of lines of code. That would be very difficult. So when I use the variable name amount used, I just need to change it at one place. This is where I define the variable. If I change the value over here, anywhere I use this particular variable name, the value will automatically be changed because I'm referring to that container. I just need to change the content of the container. For example, now that I've changed this to 400, if I go ahead and run the file again, you realize that it gives me the answer as 400. So that's one reason why you need to use a variable. Now back to the question that we need to solve. Assuming you are working with people's data in Python, create variables to store a person's full name, his or her age, and indicate whether the gender is female or not. So this is very easy. I'm going to let you think about it for a second. You can just pause the video and try it out yourself. Then we solve it. Now let's solve it. All you need to do is to create a variable with a name, full name. Usually the name should be very descriptive so that whoever is reading your code will know what exactly you've stored there. So full underscore name should be equal to maybe my name. And my name is Trevor New 44. You can write a string, a full string. It's a name, so a string is the sensible data type to use. If your name is just a number, you can put a number over there. The age, so age should be equal to maybe 27. The age is an integer. It makes sense that the age is an integer. The age of a person is a number, so it makes sense. Now, they said you should show whether the gender is female or not. So I could have a variable of the sort is female, and I could equate this to false. Obviously, I'm not female. So this is the answer to the question. We've created 3 variables, one for the full name. We've assigned a full name to that variable. Then we've assigned a variable name to the age. So age is equal to 27. And whether the person is female or not, we've set that to false. Now, this could be the tricky part. Maybe you would have done something like gender is equal to male or gender is equal to female. Well, that's also fine. But strictly going according to the question, they said we should indicate whether the gender is female or not. So this is some sort of Boolean value. Either it is female or not. When you work with the language a lot, you get used to the way you name the variable so that it would make sense. So it's female equals false. So guys, that's it for this video. I've shown you what a variable is, how you create a variable in Python, and how you use the assignment operator to create a variable in Python. I've also shown you how variables work and why you need to use variables in your work. After this, we're able to solve this particular question over here, which says that assuming you are working with blah blah blah, you should create 3 variables to indicate that. We've done all of that. So that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching this. If you did enjoy it, you know what to do. If you have any problems, questions, or anything relating to what we have covered in this video, feel free to leave that in the comment section. I'll check them out and I'll reply to you. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video of this series. Cheers.